What if the Federal Reserve didn't just respond to financial crises? What if it accidentally built a collapse machine that actually needs crises to survive? You feel it every day, even if you don't know why. Your rent is higher. Your groceries cost more. Your savings account seems to buy less and less. You're working harder than ever, but somehow, you're always just one bad month away from disaster. We're told it's just inflation, or normal market cycles, or the result of global events. These are nice, clean, simple words, but behind those words is something almost no one ever explains to you: a hidden system of shadow banking and overnight debt. A system that is quietly protected and supercharged by the Federal Reserve itself. And this system is wired so that when it breaks, you're the one who bleeds, and someone else gets paid. Tonight, we are diving deep into the collapse model that's baked into modern finance, the part that the 99% never ever see. And before we go any deeper, I want to do a quick community check-in. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments below. You'll be surprised at how global this awakening really is. And if you want more of this unfiltered financial truth, make sure you subscribe right now. Okay, let's pull back the curtain. Let's roll the clock back to 1913. This is the year the Federal Reserve was born. The official story we were all taught was that its purpose was to stabilize the financial system and prevent bank panics. But the unspoken truth, the reality, was to protect the banks first and everyone else second. Does that sound familiar? Fast forward to 1929. The stock market collapses and millions of people lose everything. The Fed is widely blamed for not stepping in enough, for not doing more. So, the lesson they learned wasn't to fix the underlying problems, but to intervene harder and intervene faster the next time. Then comes 1971, a pivotal year. The US dollar is officially detached from gold. From this moment on, money becomes faith-based, it's policy-based. Its value is controlled by a small group of people at central banks, and the entire global economy shifts into a new gear, credit expansion mode. Debt begins to grow exponentially. Speculation grows. Risk-taking skyrockets across the board. Again, does any of this sound familiar? Jump to 1987. The stock market plunges a shocking 22% in a single day. The Fed steps in again, flooding the system with liquidity. Then 1998, the hedge fund long-term capital management nearly collapses the entire global financial system. And what happens? Another massive rescue. Then we have the dot-com bust in 2000, the great financial crisis of 2008, and the market crash of 2020. Each crisis is bigger than the last. And each time, the system is saved, but only by becoming more leveraged, more fragile, and more utterly dependent on the next round of central bank intervention. So what's the real-world result of all this? A colossal shadow financial system has been built, running on overnight loans, short-term collateral, and complex securities that almost no one outside of high finance even understands. Meanwhile, you and I feel the consequences directly. Asset prices, like homes and stocks, inflate to unreachable levels. Wages stagnate, never keeping up, and the cost of basic necessities, like rent, just keeps going up and up. This isn't random. This history isn't just a series of unfortunate events. It's a pattern, and it leads to a destructive mechanism that almost no one ever talks about. Here's where it gets really dark. The real danger today isn't in the stock market. It's not even in traditional bank lending like mortgages or car loans. The true ticking time bomb is hidden in the short-term dollar funding system, a place called the repo market. This is the hidden plumbing of global finance. Think of it like this. Every single night, major financial institutions borrow hundreds of billions, sometimes trillions, of dollars in overnight cash. They do this by putting up securities, like government bonds, as collateral. This massive, constant flow of overnight money is the fuel that powers the entire shadow banking system. It's what allows hedge funds to make huge leveraged bets and investment banks to fund their massive balance sheets. The whole thing runs on pure confidence. So what happens when that confidence drops, even for a moment? The whole thing freezes, the lending stops, the machine grinds to a halt. And this isn't a hypothetical. This has happened repeatedly. It happened in 2008, when the collapse of Lehman Brothers caused the repo market to seize up, triggering a global financial meltdown. It happened again in September of 2019, when out of nowhere, repo rates, the interest on these overnight loans, spiked from 2% to over 10% in a matter of hours. The system was breaking. And it happened again in March of 2020 during the pandemic crash, when panic sent the funding markets into a complete tailspin. Every single time, the Federal Reserve stepped in with massive, unprecedented emergency lending programs. They created special facilities to pump trillions of dollars directly into this broken plumbing to get it flowing again. They saved the day, right? But here's the sinister twist. By repeatedly rescuing this incredibly fragile system, the Fed has done something much more dangerous. They have hard-coded a collapse model into the very fabric of modern finance. They have taught the biggest players that there is no risk they can't take, because the central bank will always be there to bail them out. They've created a moral hazard of unimaginable scale. The system is now designed to break, because the biggest players know that a crisis is their payday. And here's the part we've been building toward this whole time. The same names, the same institutions, benefit every single time the system breaks. They get access to zero-interest loans. They get to swap their garbage assets for pristine cash from the Fed. They get to buy up assets from weaker players at fire sale prices. The crisis becomes their opportunity, funded by the central bank. While you get inflation and uncertainty, they get a bailout. This isn't an accident. It's a feature of the system. Now, in part 2 of this investigation, we're going to break down the mechanics of how this works in even greater detail. We will show you how a $1 trillion pool of repo market funding becomes a $10 trillion tower of risk that threatens the entire economy. We will connect the dots and show you exactly how your job, your rent, and your savings are directly tied to this obscure market for overnight debt. And most importantly, we are going to name the names. We will show you exactly who profits from this engineered fragility. You won't believe it. The receipts, the actual data, is wilder than you can possibly think. Make sure you are subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss it. This is information they don't want you to have. Thanks for watching. Ever wonder how our financial system can seem so stable one day and on the brink of collapse the next? It's not random. There's a hidden architecture at play, a system designed in a way that almost guarantees periodic crises. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and expose it. No jargon, no complexity, just the plain truth. Let's start with something that sounds boring but is the secret engine of Wall Street, the repo market. On the surface, it's simple. A bank or fund needs cash for just one night. They put up high-quality collateral, like government bonds, borrow the cash, and promise to repay it the next day with a tiny bit of interest. Sounds harmless, right? But here's the catch, the scale. We're not talking about a few $1 million. We're talking about $4 to $5 trillion flowing through this market every single day. This isn't just about overnight liquidity, it's about leverage. This short-term borrowing allows massive financial institutions to multiply their bets. With just $1 of their own capital, they can control $5, $10, even $20 worth of assets. As long as interest rates are low and everyone believes the system is safe, it's a non-stop money machine. The whole thing runs on 3 ingredients: leverage, collateral, and confidence. But what happens when one of those ingredients goes bad? This is where we see the system's built-in fragility. Imagine just a few major lenders get nervous. Maybe they see a shadow on the horizon. Maybe they hear a rumor. They decide to pull back their cash for just 24 hours. Suddenly, the entire system seizes up. Borrowers scramble for cash, offering higher and higher interest rates. This is exactly what happened in September of 2019. The repo rate, which normally hovers around 2%, suddenly spiked to over 10% overnight. A 400% jump. Panic sets in. To get cash, desperate institutions start dumping their collateral, those safe government bonds. When everyone sells at once, the price of that collateral crashes. Now, the collateral held by everyone else on their books is worth less. This makes other lenders even more nervous. They see the falling collateral values and pull their money too. It's a domino effect, a death spiral. In 2019, the only thing that stopped a full-blown meltdown was the Federal Reserve. They stepped in and started injecting tens, then hundreds of billions of dollars daily to calm the markets. Did you see that on the nightly news? Was it the headline story? Of course not. It was framed as a technical glitch in the plumbing of the financial system. But it was a near-death experience, a heart attack that was only stopped by a massive emergency injection of public money. This brings us to the main character in our story, the Federal Reserve. The Fed plays a dual role. It's both the firefighter and, in a way, the arsonist. After the 2008 financial crisis, the Fed launched a radical experiment called quantitative easing, or QE. They began buying trillions of dollars in government bonds and other securities directly from the banks. Their balance sheet, which was less than $1 trillion before 2008, exploded to over $8 trillion by 2020. What was the effect of all this money printing? It had to go somewhere. It flooded into financial markets. Stock prices soared. Bond prices went to the moon. Real estate values hit all-time highs. If you already owned assets, if you were part of the top 10% who own over 70% of the nation's wealth, you got incredibly rich without lifting a finger. Your 401k, your home equity, your stock portfolio, they all inflated. But if you didn't own assets, if you lived paycheck to paycheck, you fell further and further behind. Your wages didn't keep up with the soaring cost of housing and living. This is what I call parasitic finance. The system extracts value from the future and pulls it into the present to create the illusion of stability and prosperity. It papers over the cracks today by creating a much larger bubble for tomorrow. Every time the Fed steps in to rescue the system, it sends a powerful message to the biggest players. Take as much risk as you want. Go ahead, leverage up, make wild bets. Because if you win, you keep the profits. But if you lose, don't worry. We, the Fed, will be there to bail you out with public credit. The risk is socialized, while the profits are privatized. This creates a moral hazard that just inflates the next bubble, making it bigger and more dangerous than the last. Let's just look at a few shocking numbers to really let this sink in. Over $8 trillion, the size of the Fed's balance sheet after 2020, a 10+% interest rate spike. What happened in the repo market in 2019, nearly freezing global finance. 40% of all US dollars in existence were created in the short window after 2020. And perhaps most importantly, zero. That's the number of public votes cast on these emergency rescues. Trillion-dollar decisions that affect every single one of us are made behind closed doors by unelected officials. These aren't wild conspiracy theories. All of this data is publicly available, buried in Fed reports and financial disclosures that almost nobody reads. So here's the big reveal, the central thesis of it all. The Fed didn't set out to build a malicious conspiracy. It's more subtle than that. They accidentally built a collapse model. It's a system that is programmed to periodically fail in a way that wipes out the savings and wealth of the middle class, only to be rescued in a manner that transfers that wealth and power upwards to the very few at the top. Each crash becomes a justification for a bigger intervention. Each intervention creates the conditions for an even bigger crash. Crises are no longer bugs in the system. They have become a feature. They are the mechanism through which wealth is redistributed upward and power is consolidated. It's not a villain plotting in a dark room. It's an architecture, a machine that operates exactly as it was built. So, what does this mean for the future? The next collapse won't look like 2008. It won't be a slow-motion train wreck you watch unfold over months. It will be immediate, global, and algorithmic. Our modern financial system depends on overnight funding, high-frequency trading, and software-driven leverage. A freeze in one corner of the market can cascade across the entire globe in minutes, not weeks. We are living on borrowed time, not just economically, but socially. And the real cost of these bailouts is unpaid by the institutions that are plugged directly into the Fed's liquidity hose. It's paid by workers whose wages stagnate. It's paid by renters facing impossible housing costs. It's paid by savers whose money is devalued by inflation. It's paid by small business owners who can't get a loan while corporations get bailed out. So ask yourself, how many more times can the top be rescued while everyone else is forced to absorb the fallout? These crises don't just reveal the system, they actively reshape it, making it more unequal each time. And until a critical mass of people understands this architecture, nothing is going to change. I want you to think about this and let me know in the comments. Can this system be reformed from within, or does it have to be completely rebuilt from the ground up? Share this video with someone who still thinks that every crisis is just a random, unpredictable accident. And make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the financial mechanisms that are secretly shaping your world. Because the real question isn't, will there be another collapse? Of course there will be. The system guarantees it. The real question is, are we any wiser this time around? Or are we just walking down the same path, wearing slightly better suits? Thanks for watching.